You're listening to Inside the Village, where all news is local and no topic is off limits.
So help me, Bob, it's bully in the alley. Hey, bully in the alley. So help me, Bob.
Welcome to Inside the Village for the week of February 22nd, 2023. I'm Scott Sexsmith alongside Village Media Editor-in-Chief Michael Friscolanti. We call him Frisco. Welcome back, pal. Good to see you.
Your intros get more and more like a boxing match every week.
I know. You know what? I get into it. This is, we all wear many hats around here. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Amongst the three of us, of course, Derek Turner, executive producers in the room. This is by far my favorite time of the week.
Really?
It absolutely is.
You do get excited.
I do.
You dress up nice. You look good.
Well, I won't show you what's my shorts.
Yeah.
But it is by far the best time of the week for me. I love hanging out with you guys. I love telling the stories that
absolutely
we get to tell, and we get to come down to the basement away from all of the noise and hustle and bustle and hang out and,
People think we're working hard down here. The door's closed. What's going on in there?
If they only knew. Listen, before we get going, breaking news. A brand new sponsor to Inside the Village. Want to give a warm welcome and a big shout out to Mitch Snedden at Reverse Mortgage Pros. Great guy, Mitch. We appreciate your support. So for guides, articles, and any kind of information, you can go to reversemortgagepros.ca. Welcome to the team, Mitch. Great to have you. Okay, so we're back from Family Day weekend, a long weekend for some. Not so much for you.
Oh, definitely a busy day a busy weekend for a lot of us at Village Media. If you haven't seen yet, we've launched our new Queen's Park Bureau, a new Queen's Park website, the Trillium.ca. This came together super quick, as we're going to hear later on the show. It took a matter of days to get this all designed, put the design together, get the news team in place, and we now have a bureau, a daily site at Queen's Park covering all things provincial politics, policy, personalities. It's a massively exciting time for us. I'm really, really excited to have this site in place, to be sort of at the tip of what's going on in provincial politics. It's really great.
And it's amazing how quickly it came together.
Yeah, I've learned working here now for the last year how quickly things come together. There are some companies, I'm sure, where they spend many months plotting things out. We'll often make a decision in a half an hour and then make it happen, which is actually a great thing, right? It kind of reminds me of working a newspaper or a magazine where you blow the whole thing up with a day left to go and you redo it. This is what happened with this case. This team came together, as we're going to hear, like I said, later in the show, how these journalists came to Village, how we put the site together, and the work we're going to do. But so it was a busy weekend. The launch day was Tuesday morning, so you can imagine the Family Day weekend was a lot of work.
And you and I have both worked for much larger companies that would never in a million years pull something of this magnitude off as quickly. There would be meetings upon feasibility studies, and consultants would be brought in, but that's just not how we roll.
Well, I got to tell you the one crazy thing about how this came together. Again, it's the Trillium.ca, right? So in the middle of last week, we knew we were going to do this. We're talking about possible names, designs. The name came together like this, and then our design team just started getting to work on what this logo is going to look like. And it felt like within 5 minutes there were options. It wasn't 5 minutes; it was a little bit longer, but just fantastic stuff. It looked so beautiful. It looked like people had spent months designing these things, and it just looks so sharp. It looks fantastic.
Well, appreciate all the work that you and the team did over Family Day, which of course is meant to be time well spent with the family. But your efforts did not go unnoticed. I, however, did think of both you and Derek over Family Day weekend, as I enjoyed a Delicioso pizza.
They still thought they were gone.
6 months.
6 months. Oh.
Was in the store, saw it, and I thought, in honor of you guys, gonna pick one up.
Did you stock up? Did you fill the freezer?
I may have bought more than one. Just saying.
Are they on sale now that they're shutting down?
They were on sale, but I'm not going to plug the store. That kind of stuff costs money. To say that. All right, we'll get to the bottom of the brand new The Trillium. It's a wonderful story. We're proud to tell it, and we will do that next when Inside the Village returns.
From newsmakers to celebrities to other prominent guests, you'll find them all on Village Media's new interview series, Up Close and Personal. Join host Scott Sexsmith as he goes one-on-one with well-known Canadians to hear their story. Up Close and Personal. Look for it on your favorite Village Media website across Ontario.
Welcome back to Inside the Village, brought to you by Mitch Snedden at Reverse Mortgage Pros. For guides, articles, and info, you can go to reversemortgagepros.ca. With Michael Friscolanti, Editor-in-Chief here at Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith, and it is indeed our pleasure to welcome two of our newest villagers to Inside the Village, Jessica Smith-Cross, the Editor-in-Chief of the Trillium, and the Deputy Editor, and the guy with perhaps the best name in the media business, Charlie Pinkerton. Welcome both to Inside the Village and to the Village family. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so
thanks.
I guess the most logical place to start would be it's been a crazy couple of weeks for you guys. As we tape today, this is day 2 of the Trillium. How's the reaction been around Queen's Park and among fellow journalists, among politicians? What can you tell us?
It's been pretty great. A lot of welcome back for us. We were in the press gallery as of a couple of weeks ago, and it's so nice to be back. All of the journalists, a lot of the politicians and staffers, they know who we are, and they seemed glad to see us back, even the ones who we've written stories they may not like about before. It's a playful environment here sometimes.
They understand the game. You as well, Charlie, a lot of reaction. Obviously, Twitter kind of blew up yesterday when this all came out.
Yeah, I'd say it's been overwhelmingly positive. I've had heard a lot of good comments, a lot of welcome backs. Pretty good across the board.
For sure. We want to take a step back and kind of allow our listeners and our readers of Village to understand sort of how this all came together so quickly. Just some background, obviously. You guys were at QP Briefing a couple weeks ago, which was a property at one time owned by the Toronto Star, and then it was kind of one of the assets in the divorce between the two owners at the Star, and it eventually went to Paul Rivet. And at the time, Charlie, you were working on a pretty important story. Were you working on that story as the ownership changed? Let's talk about that first. What was the story you were working on?
Sure. So the story that I was working on was about, what's now known publicly about the Premier's daughter's wedding festivities, that of her stag and doe and wedding, that developers, including some who have benefited from the government's decisions, including one in particular who is benefiting from its recent Greenbelt land swap. So they were at these wedding festivities for Premier Ford's daughter. This was something that I first caught wind of way back on August 12th, which was at the press conference where Doug Ford swallowed a bee. Somebody,
Wow.
It's ridiculous. But somebody had mentioned there that, hey, did you hear about this developers party at the Premier's house last night? And didn't really think much of it. The fall unfolded how it did in terms of policy and with the Greenbelt land swap. And it became something that towards, I guess, the end of last year, I started thinking about more seriously, and then really doing the work on throughout the month of January and into February as well.
And I think a lot of people who don't do what we do don't understand what that means, the kind of work you're doing. What kind of stuff were you doing in those weeks getting the story prepped?
Yeah, so I think I probably brought it up to Jess and others that I thought this was something worth exploring because of this, kind of tip that I heard way back when. In late December, a couple of weeks before, we had gotten back through a Freedom of Information request the Premier's daily calendars that the Cabinet Office keeps. And on the date that, again, I had reason to believe this happened, August 11th, that calendar showed it was blank with the exception of 2, I believe, redacted items for personal reasons, and then a big section that was literally labeled block. And so what that means is that that's for, items or commitments kept outside of the official calendar. So that kind of spurred on suspicions. Then had another Freedom of Information request come back that was very carefully targeted to try to find out where the Premier was or what he was doing on that date, August 11th. That yielded no records. And so that allowed me and our whole team to really kind of pick things up in the new year of trying to suss it out and start talking to people who might know something about it. And so that work that, took a month.
And Jessica, again, maybe an obvious question for us, but to people who may not understand, why is it, as the editor, that's such an important story? It's something that you want your team to be working on?
It's one of the huge themes of criticism of this government has been how close the premier is to developers, to industry in general, but especially with the development industry. And he's been facing a lot of charges about making decisions that are friendly to those folks who share his interests. The development of the Greenbelt itself, a lot of different municipal zoning orders. So these are times when the province can step in and make it a development that might not otherwise go ahead locally. It's a huge source of criticism of the premier. So when Charlie was able to show that developers, big ones in the industry, attended the wedding, and that there was this event where it appears that they were paying for the privilege of being at this event that the premier was at, it's a huge ethical issue. And that's why, since the story has broken, it's the talk of everything at Queen's Park right now.
Absolutely. I mean, it's such a massive story, and we're fortunate in our career, and we get to have one of those on the line, so to speak, that you're working on, and is important. It's hugely important in the public interest for the public, for voters to know that people with these deep pockets have access to the premier in this way, and it's definitely a story in the public interest. So something happened along the way, though, where this story that you guys are working on didn't see the light of day. What happened?
So Charlie had the story written about the wedding itself, who was at it, and then about the Stag and Doe event and concerns around that. He had gone the extra mile. You've heard about the Freedom of Information request. He'd gone to the Premier's office to seek their comment. The Premier's office had gone to the province's Integrity Commissioner after the fact with some of the details, confirming that what Charlie had was right. It was a solid story. We had gone through the process of consulting with a lawyer about it, just to make sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, when our publisher informed me that the owners had read the story and wouldn't allow it to be published in its current form. That led to some big problems for us. Journalistic independence is a pretty core principle, and you can't have the owners interfering with a story like this, especially trying to put the brakes on something that was so clearly in the public interest.
And just to be clear, that's not common, right? You don't expect any kind of interference. And is that the first time that either one of you had that happen to you?
Yes. Oh, I've never experienced anything like this in my career before. So when that happened, we tried to talk through it, offered to get the story lawyered again. If the concern was that it was potential for a lawsuit, we offered to get that double checked. But when eventually the conversations ended up in a place where the concerns seemed to be about information that was true in the public interest, and just we couldn't handle it being the owners having a problem with it. Charlie quit and I quit, and the whole team is actually on the line to quit. That's how we ended up not working for Queen's Park Briefing anymore.
Can you tell us about that? Was there a final phone call with the owners where you told them what your position was when you quit, or how did that go down?
I actually sought that. I asked our publisher if she could give me assurances that the owners wouldn't interfere like this ever again. She could not. I asked to speak to the owners to get that assurance from them in person. They did not call. I quit.
And what day was that? Do you remember? You probably do.
I actually don't know.
That shows you how much has been going on, right?
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago, exactly. Sounds right. Yeah.
I mean, it's heartbreaking to hear that, because as someone who's been fortunate to work on some very sensitive stories, and you're digging up facts the way you did and doing it in the public interest, it's very disheartening to hear that an owner would do that your publisher would not allow that to happen. I mean, it's devastating, right? I mean, I don't think maybe the average person understands how heart-wrenching that is to have that happen to something, a big story you're doing. So when you actually quit, the story basically died with that, right? I mean, that's what happened.
It was picked up. So Global News was working on the Stag and Doe in parallel to Charlie. And because Charlie had gone to the Premier's office and the Premier's office had gone to the Integrity Commissioner, verifying some of the central facts there, Global was able to go ahead with their story on the Stag and Doe. And then Charlie wrote more of the story for the Toronto Star as a freelancer in the brief period between employment at Queen's Park Briefing.
For sure. But I guess what I'm at, Charlie, was what you wanted to break that story. Obviously, you'd worked on it for weeks, right? It must have been difficult to see Global break it.
You don't say.
I'm really good at asking questions, eh?
Yeah, no, but more seriously, yeah, like of course I wanted to break that story. It's a very big story, and we'll see what the ramifications are in the near or later future. But at the end of the day, it's being reported now, and we'll continue to see the dominoes fall, so to say.
So you guys quit QP briefing, and by the way, kudos. I mean that takes a lot of guts to do that. So congratulations for standing by your beliefs. But let's fast forward. You leave QP, and all of a sudden the phone rings, and on the other end of it is Village Media's CEO Jeff Elgie, a man that, of course, we all hold in very high regard. In this room, certainly. Can you tell us about that phone conversation and how it went, and what was Jeff's pitch?
It was a DM on my Twitter account. I have open DMs. I didn't know Jeff prior to this. It was the morning after we quit. He wanted to talk. He'd been trying to hire a Queen's Park reporter, and I gather moves very quickly on some things and ramped up his plans to hire an entire bureau of Queen's Park reporters, and he talked us all into it.
He's actually very slow and methodical at everything that he does. I've never seen a guy take so long to get stuff done. Actually, that's the complete opposite of how things roll here. So tell us about the conversations. Had you heard of Village? Tell us about what was discussed.
Oh, sure. I'd heard of the individual publications. We do at Queen's Park Briefing, we did a morning newsletter that would round up news, Ontario news, and they would be in them. But I don't think I'd ever thought about the company as a chain before.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no, I was just going to say, in my first real reporting job, I suppose, was in Sault Ste. Marie back in the summer of 2016 while I was still a student. And while I was there working for the Sault Star, I remembered Sault Today being around, but I think Village was much smaller back then. And so I'd also, over the past couple of years, had spent quite a bit of time running a local newspaper in Ottawa. So through that and through my, work with QP Briefing and iPolitics, I came to know Village as one of the media companies in this country and province, but not much beyond that.
So, as we said, things moved quickly. Obviously, you probably thought you were going to have a bit of time to decompress and think about what your next steps were going to be. Maybe do some gardening for a minute. Who knows, right? But all of a sudden, you're having all these conversations with Jeff. How quickly did it all come together?
Oh, what was the timeline between signing contracts and starting this thing? Less than a week?
Mm-hmm.
The Saturday following the Wednesday that we quit, I believe we had a team chat with Jeff. And by Monday, we had received offers, and we're figuring out what to do from there, I think.
Yeah.
For sure. And at the same time, we've forgotten this, too. There were 3 other journalists who were let go at the same time, around the same time you guys left. So it was a team effort. They all kind of came together. Was that part of the appeal, being able to come back as that same team?
Yeah, absolutely. 100% for me.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that was, as our readers may not realize, is this all came together within once you guys signed your contracts, it was like, okay, we're going to do this quickly because the legislature's coming back on the Tuesday after Family Day. We want to get going. We hit the ground running. Our design team goes into full speed. Our journalist team goes into full speed getting things ready. Was there a point where you were nervous? I know I was a little nervous at one point about getting this all together.
I wasn't nervous about the reporting. I was just excited to be coming back to Queen's Park. I figured you guys would sort out the rest.
No, I was a bit nervous, but the great thing that I learned quickly the first time I met you guys and had our first news meeting, just how professional they are and how good they are at what they do, and just how plugged in you are at Queen's Park, and what a benefit this is going to be for our readers who want to know more and understand have a deeper understanding of what goes on at the legislature. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and that's a good segue, Frisco. What can readers expect from the team day in and day out?
We do a couple of kinds of stories. So one will be, here's what's happening at Queen's Park. Here's the kind of provincial news that everybody needs to know. There's new healthcare legislation. There's new political drama. We also do a little bit more insidery things. Here's a highlight from what was said in question period. Here's what lobbyists have been up to for the last week. Here's a regulatory proposal that's up for consultation on the website. So you get this mix of sort of nerdy deep dives into politics and policy and more broad-based stories about why all of this matters.
Mm-hmm. And I'm also excited. I think you've already started. You're talking to some of our local editors in our newsrooms and working on and throwing out some ideas that we can tackle over the next year. How much does that excite you guys to be able to have your work even be seen by more eyes in communities across the province where maybe they wouldn't have seen it?
Oh, absolutely. I love doing this sort of insider stuff, but actually having, real people rather than just Queen's Park adjacent folks read what we're doing means a lot to me. And yeah, having already talked to one of the editors about an issue in Timmins that has the Queen's Park connection and what can we do to move this forward, it's very, very exciting. What
would you guys say are some of the key issues and stories that you'll be staying on top of in the weeks, months, and year ahead?
Wow, it's a wide time frame right there. I guess,
And when are you going to file, Charlie?
Right, that's right.
One of those stories going to be ready?
As the last 2 weeks have unfolded, I've kind of just been thinking about what the next foot in front of the last one is like. So I can probably talk about what is most relevant immediately. And so, we're certainly be watching how the saga unfolds with future integrity commissioner investigations into the premier over the Stag and Doe, the wedding. How a OPP investigation that may or may not happen that we're waiting to hear the details of from the OPP, how that's going to unfold. That whole saga, of course, will be something I will be very keenly interested in. The other major issues in the province right now, the healthcare system and the issues that have really plagued that for a very, very, very long time. Trying to think what else is extremely relevant at the moment. Jess, this is what I will pass to you because I've ran out of words.
Yeah, right now. Well, on the governmental front, it's the controversy over the wedding in Stag and Doe, the Greenbelt development itself, which is related, and the healthcare, the privatization aspect. There's a couple of things going on there, this opening up of surgeries to private clinics, but also we're just seeing more and more reports about sort of two-tier aspects of healthcare happening, where you can charge, pay a little bit to jump to the front of a line to see a virtual care provider, stuff like that. There's been ongoing sort of patronage issues with the government. There have been a lot of appointments of folks who are connected to the PC parties to public posts. We've been doing a lot of reporting on that. There's also some interesting politics. The Liberals are going to elect a new leader at some point, or select a new leader. We'll see how they choose to do that. Charlie and Aidan will be on top of that as that party meets in Hamilton next month. Yep. And then, more stuff will happen.
Well, I have to say, I often get accused on this show of being too much of a cheerleader. We often talk about journalism and the journalism we do here at Village, and I get excited about journalism. It's the thing I love the most. We've been all doing it for a long time. So I just want to say again how excited I am to have you guys on board and to be part of this team. And I just can't wait to read what you do every day and to be involved in the meetings and talking about the journalism we're going to chase down. I think it's going to be a massive benefit for the people who read our sites and who care about local journalism and who care that what happens locally is what happens at Queen's Park. What the province does is hugely important. So welcome to Village. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. It means a lot to have you guys here.
And does this not, correct me if I'm wrong, does this not give us the largest media presence as a team and as a company at Queen's Park?
That's a great question. Do we?
Are we bigger than the Star Bureau now?
Stars for report eventually once we're fully staffed, and
we'll be 5. I think we may be. CBC.
All right, look at us.
Go big or go home, I guess.
That's what we say. That's what Jeff says. And do it fast. Jessica Smith Cross and Charlie Pinkerton from the Trillium. Great to have you guys as part of the Village family, and good luck with everything, and thanks for doing this today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Reporters, editors, and journalists who go the extra mile to get the story and get it right. Go behind the scenes with those who cover the stories that matter most to you and your community. Look for it in the Village Features section of your favorite Village Media website across Ontario.
All right, back to wrap on another episode of Inside the Village with Michael Friscolanti, editor-in-chief here at Village Media. I'm Scott Sexsmith. The Trillium.ca, what a great crew. You can tell that they are pumped to be here and just raring to go.
And what I loved about this episode of Inside the Village is we called this show Inside the Village because we wanted to talk about things that we're doing here.
Exactly.
We talk every week about the journalism we're pulling off, the important stories we're telling. And this is one of those great opportunities to really just bring people inside and show them how this all came together. So they see the Trillium.ca, they know it's there, now they know the backstory of how it all came together so quickly. And I think it's going to be one of those sites that just serves our readers incredibly well, not just those who read the Trillium, but they're going to help us do even better things in the communities we serve across the province. So yeah, I think we've said it 1,000 times, but I'm super excited about how this is going to go.
Going to be great. Looking forward to the tremendous work that the crew at the Trillium will be producing for us each and every day. Again, it's thetrillium.ca. That's it for us on this episode of Inside the Village, brought to you by Mitch Snedden at Reverse Mortgage Pros. For guides, articles, and information, log on today to reversemortgagepros.ca. And again, a big shout out and thanks to Mitch for joining our team. You can find back episodes of the program at insidethevillage.ca, wherever you get your favorite podcasts, and of course across the Village Media Network. And if you'd like to reach out, email us at itv@villagemedia.ca. For executive producer Derek Turner, editor-in-chief Michael Friscolanti, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
You've been listening to Inside the Village.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe, provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.